I said Amtsprache is the denial of choice. It's should, got to, ought to, must, have to, need to.
Yeah, I don't know German, so that's why I translated into fundamentalism. But
A-M-T-S-P-R-C-H-E.
yeah, I'm still not going to know that one. But yeah, thanks.
Didn't the Quakers burn people?
No. Not lately, but yeah, sure.
His term was
Bureaucracy.
it was something to do with like absolutes, like not allowing choices.
Yes, I think absolutism is getting a little closer, but let's emphasize absolutism. The one principle that you had to believe in order to join the Garrisonian wing of the abolitionist movement was slavery is an evil that must be abolished immediately, unconditionally, and with no compensation, no payment to the slave master. And they said, and you can believe in anything you want. You can believe in vegetarianism, you can believe in nudism. Oh wow, thank you. You can believe in beer. You can believe in feminism for all they care, right? And some of the first feminist movement emerges out of the Garrisonians. You can believe in anything you want, but you must believe absolutely in this principle. And I say,
yes.
Damn it, they're right.
Yeah.
That's the same
So absolutism, I think, is correct. That is a feature of fanaticism. But some of the fanatics, damn it if they don't have good absolutist principles. So sometimes when we're talking about, well, you got to be pluralism, you got to allow choice, you got to let people disagree. Yeah, sometimes. And sometimes I don't. If anyone tells me, well, slavery was okay sometimes, I think I should say this: punching your nose is okay sometimes too. So sometimes absolutism, I want to say that those in the room who say that a feature of extremism means refusing to compromise your principles and being absolutely certain that your principles are correct, I think yes, that's true. But we also have to acknowledge that sometimes refusing to compromise on your principles and being absolutely certain your principles are right can contribute to a free society rather than contribute to tyranny. So I'm going to give those ones for sure. Being on the fringe. That's the word. I think that's the word what extremism means. And the one reason I don't really like the word extremism is because it means being on the extreme. On the fringe. Speaking of on the fringe and extremes, there's my comrades from Ruckus. And as I was driving way over here, speaking of extremes and the fringes, my mother-in-law lives in Anthem, so I was driving all the way from Anthem here, and I was listening to Into the Pit on the way. Anyone know Into the Pit?
Yep. Metal on 90-something.
Thank God there's one metalhead in this room. I feel much better now.
What the heck?
Yeah. So I was listening to Into the Pit, and Into the Pit is like the death metal Sunday night. Listen to and Into the Pit is basically music just like this. Right? That's extreme, right? In other words, though that is music that sits on the fringes, that music that never wants to enter the mainstream. And when they do enter the mainstream, they do like Metallica, they put out the Black Album, it fucking sucks, right? So you don't want to hear about it. But in other words, an extremist is happy to be on the fringe. But most political extremists don't want to stay on the fringe. Most political extremists that I've run into, their goal is to use an academic term, or a term that comes from the Italian Marxist Antonio Gramsci. Most extremists seek hegemony. And the word hegemony simply means that most extremists seek to define what is the common sense of a society. Right? So what is the common sense of our society? Capitalism is good. Representative democracy is the way to govern. Secularism is the best way to listen, to worship. Coldplay makes really meaningful music. Michelob Ultra 64 is good beer. Right? These are the common sense of our society. And an extremist, his goal is to transform common sense, to turn things upside down, to say, oh, slavery, I don't really like it, but hey, it's a southern thing, and to turn that up and to reject that common sense with a new common sense that says slavery, racial discriminations are abominations. To say that, sometimes you got to pollute a little in order to be productive, and then to say no compromise in defense of Mother Earth. I want to replace this one that says whatever man needs to produce, to replace it with an ecocentric ethos. And so what they're not trying to, extremists don't want to sit at the fringes. Their goal is to enter the mainstream, to transform the mainstream, to transform the hegemony or the common sense of a society. So I think you've all done a great job coming up with a list. And so let me just give you what my understanding of fanaticism, the working definition I've given it. And I think we should first of all understand fanaticism or extremism or zealotry. I'll use all three words here. It's not a psychological temperament. It's not a behavior. It's not something that crazy people do. Some people who are crazy are extremists. Some people who are crazy voted for Obama, right? So crazy people do all kinds of crazy things. Being crazy does not define you as an extremist. Rather than look at it as a psychological state of mind, I suggest that we look at extremism or fanaticism as a particular approach to doing politics. And it's an approach to doing politics that's different from running for office. And it's an approach to politics that's different from doing internet activism. It's an approach to politics. And so the way I define fanaticism is that I define it as political activity driven by a strong or ardent devotion to a cause that seeks to draw clear lines along a friends-enemies dichotomy in order to mobilize friends in the service of that cause. And in other words, let me break it down even simpler. I think fanaticism is simply the political mobilization of the refusal to compromise. So those of you in the room who said that fanaticism means a refusal to compromise on your beliefs, I think that's absolutely true. When you refuse to compromise and then you seek to organize others, then I think you're talking about the fanatic. So if you know lots of people who says, I believe that fluoride in the water is the greatest threat to our society and it's turning us into mindless, numbed people who are going to obey the government when they flick a switch or something like that, right? Many people, those people of beliefs live in Flagstaff, for example. If you believe that, yeah, that might be and you won't hear any other evidence contrary. You refuse to compromise on the evils of fluoridated water. But until you're willing to organize people on the basis of that, I don't think you're a fanatic. When you start to say that we should march on the water company and demand that they take the fluoridated water out, and then I think you're talking about extremism.
I think I know the most strong extremist there is, Richard Dawkins. He goes to every single person, every faith. Really,
now, Richard Dawkins, not the guy in Family Feud, right?
No,
all right.
He's a biologist.
Oh, Richard Dawson. Man, thank you for clarifying that. But see, the thing about Dawkins and all academics in the current company is that they're not mobilizing anyone.
Yeah.
They write books, they have fancy blogs, and they teach important classes, and they don't do shit.
Well, the Brights movement, he started the Brights movement, and I consider myself a Bright. A Bright is a person with a naturalistic worldview, free from supernatural. So that's a straight line you're clearing. You're drawing the same kind of clear line you're talking about, like, this side of the fence, that side of the fence. Right or super?
Yes. Lots of people have friends-enemies worldviews. We're trying to gather friends against, and they're the enemy, and we should attack them. Lots of people have those views. Until you organize on that view, I don't want to call you an extremist yet, or at least I don't think it's a political phenomenon yet. Potential, of course, absolutely. So this is the working definition I have, and I think in my research I've identified six features of the zealot. The 6 features of this political mobilization of the refusal to compromise. The first one is, of course, that the zealot refuses to compromise on her or his basic principles. These principles are there. Maybe we were willing to compromise on other stuff, but on the basic principle, you're not willing to compromise. Abortion is murder. Refusal to compromise on that, for example. Second of all, the extremist tends to have a worldview that divides the world into friends against enemies. You're either for the abortionists or you're against the abortionists. You're either for Mother Earth or you're against Mother Earth. You're either for the slave or you're against the slave. You're either for the Muslim Ummah or you're a hypocrite and a deceiver. They divide the world into friends and enemies.
Is there something like, with that type of logic, that right there is a fallacy, the either or? It's a false dichotomy, isn't it?
Sometimes, but I'm kind of persuaded when, look, this is one of John Brown's tactics. John Brown, the guy who did the raid on Harper's Ferry that kind of started the Civil War,